money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Lookout weekend. What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday as we welcome you into Follow the Money. Stormy Buonantony and Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Last day on the program as Mitch and Paul round out their vacation. Monday, they will be back in this spot, and we will be back on Money Moves from 12 to 2 Eastern like we are usually every weekday. Yesterday, a little bit of a dead day on the calendar. We did, of course, have the Open Championship, but it's just round 2, which we'll update here in a moment. Some Summer League games. But, JVT, today we do have meaningful Major League Baseball back on our television screens as we start the second half.
Yeah, it's exciting. Got a couple of bets for today. Excited to get this second half going, too, as there's a lot of questions about a lot of these teams. Finally want to see this stuff play out. Wild card races are also really interesting with a lot of these teams. And which among them, as we get closer to the trade deadline, will decide that it's time to buy, time to sell, and what are we going to look at from a team improvement standpoint. So very, very stoked to get this second half back underway.
Yes, and we'll give you our thoughts on the full card a little bit later on as well. We do have one game that is in action right now. The Cubs up 3-1 in the bottom of the 6th inning right now against the Red Sox. Minus 135 favorites going in, and they are sitting pretty right now. The run total for that game, 7.5, so still in flux. A couple other marquee games, Giants, Blue Jays, Yankees, Braves, Astros, Mariners, Brewers, Dodgers, so it should be a fun day. Also coming up a little bit later on, the WNBA All-Star will begin with the three-point competition and the skills competition today. Also, as VSiN's football training camp week rolls on, we've got plenty of NFL news and notes to discuss, breaking down offensive and defensive player of the year markets. Some great guests as well, coming up at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. Kendall Valenzuela will help you make some good decisions for your fantasy draft. That's coming up. We'll get to UFC 318 with Reed Kuhn in hour 2. In about 15 minutes, we'll take a deep dive into what we've seen so far from the Open Championship and projecting forward with Carl Paulson of PGA Tour Radio, which let's get into that, JVT, because Scotty Scheffler's doing it again. Shot 7 under today to take a solo lead at 10 under for the tournament. I saw as high as minus 225 for him live. Currently at DraftKings right now, minus 175 that price after 36 holes.
Yeah, so I'm going to be really curious how this plays out over the weekend, but I'll invoke one more time one of the things that we had discussed for Scotty and one of the talking points, because look, when you're this great, you got to split hairs about a dude. You have to find the intricacies of what you're going to discuss and why it might hold him back. But again, it was going to be the putter, right? Would the putter let him down? Generally, the slower greens have proved to be a little bit of a hiccup for him in his game when he goes across the ocean to play in Europe. However, today, Stormy, in his second round, a plus 4.19 on strokes gained putting led the field in the second round. According to Data Golf for the tournament, he also leads the field in strokes gained putting. So isn't it funny? The one thing that was the talking point, hey, if there was going to be something that lets him down potentially that doesn't allow him to win this thing, not even that he was going to flame out, that it just doesn't allow him to potentially win this thing, his putter's been absolutely on fire. By the way, at a time when the greens are probably the slowest, right? Because they're so wet. He was out there in the monsoon. And I thought, all right, here we go.
The weather earlier was rough.
And I thought he was going to fall apart. And it was classic, like, coastal links weather. It would rain like the worst rainstorm we've ever seen for 15 minutes. That it would go away for another 20. But he stuck through it, 10 under for the tournament. Awesome round today. And it looks like he's just going to do Scotty things at this point right now.
It is his fourth 36-hole lead in a major championship. He's gone on to win 2 of the previous 3, if that gives you any indication. Again, minus 175, the live price I'm seeing right now. You got Matt Fitzpatrick as your second shot at plus 550, shooting 5 under for a 36-hole, 9 under, 133. Brian Harman and Chris Gotterup each had good days as well, shooting 6 under. Harman now 8 under through 2 days in a 2-way tie with Haotong Li for third. And again, we'll talk plenty more Open Championship in our next segment coming up when Carl Paulson joins us. We did get a handful of NFL news items that have come through in the last 24 hours or so. We shared the news a couple days ago here on the program, JVT, that Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams in his return season to LA would be starting the season on the PUP, physically unable to perform list. And then after one day of training camp, we find out he's actually elected to retire.
Not really great for a team that has a lot of hype coming into the season for the most part. I mean, I think the way they run their offense, you're probably going to be able to overcome the loss of Williams. But here's the thing. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, about this Chargers team. Wide receiver was going to be the weakness, and the Mad Lad McConkey proved to be a pretty good draft pick. But we still have questions about whether Quentin Johnston can hold on to a football and just the overall depth of this wide receiver core, too. So this is a pretty fascinating development for the Chargers, just considering what we now know and think about this team. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how this all develops for them.
Quentin Johnston, you know how like when you play catch it's called playing catch with your dad or whatever. My dad, when he talks about Quentin Johnston, he always says he plays drops.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's a serious issue that he had. And so a group that you were hoping Mike Williams would provide a little bit of depth for, now you don't have that anymore. It's kind of funny too. Their general manager for the Los Angeles Chargers, he said on Wednesday, yeah, he's going on PUP, but we anticipate him, still at camp doing stuff tomorrow. And then that's when the agent sent the retirement news.
We should also say we have seen teams achieve great things with, B-level receiving cores. We've talked about the Chiefs receiving core for quite a while. They have achieved great things. The Buffalo Bills last year were a great example of that too, right? Where a lot of people had questions about what the receiving core was going to look like. I don't know. You got a bunch of like B and C guys in there. Josh Allen won MVP, and they were great from a record standpoint. So it can be done if you don't have the deepest wide receiver core. Question becomes, can Justin Herbert do it?
Yep.
And then for a team that's so focused on its run game, one would assume you can offset it the way you're going to call your offense.
And fortunately, too, they did at least get Trey Harris signed officially, so that news came through this week as well. They add Mekhi Becton to the offensive line with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. I do like that running back room. You know how high I am on Omari and Hampton. Najee Harris appears to be okay, so we'll see what this offense can be. Chargers plus 310, third shot in the AFC West. The Chiefs, a minus 120 favorite. The Broncos and Chargers, very similar pricing, though Denver is sitting there at 3-1. The Vikings got some news today as well. Wide receiver Jordan Addison is pleading to a lesser charge in his DUI case. If you remember, he was arrested in LA last year after being found fallen asleep behind the wheel of his Rolls Royce and what was a suspicion of DUI. Per his agent, Addison will pay a small fine and serve 12 months of probation. But if the fine is paid and he completes a couple online courses, that probation even can be cut in half. The plea, however, does acknowledge that he was intoxicated and he was behind the wheel of a motor vehicle, which is in violation of the NFL's substance abuse. I think it's called, what's the policy called? Program on Substances of Abuse. So he is subject to NFL discipline. And I'm going to laugh at you. We're going to laugh about this because
I haven't done anything.
What the league sent out in their statement about Jordan Addison is verbatim the exact same words that we got from Rashee Rice the other day, that they have closely been monitoring all developments in the matter, which remain under review.
I do wonder, again, I think Kevin O'Connell's great, so I think they'll be able to overcome it. If, let's say, it's a 2-game suspension or something like that, does this change your opinion at all?
No.
About Minnesota? That's what I'm thinking. We'll see even if it is 2 games, I'm just throwing that out there. I would assume it's going to not be. I don't know what again, you mentioned this yesterday. They're all over the place when it comes to the way they want to discipline guys. So I have no idea what exactly any sort of discipline is going to be. Maybe it's just a fine. I have no clue. I would assume at least a game.
So I don't know if this counts because he wasn't actually driving the vehicle because he's behind it. So I'm just saying, I don't know how that all works. The policy in part, according to this ESPN article I have pulled up here, says, quote, absent aggravating circumstances, discipline for a first offense will be suspension without pay of 3 regular season or postseason games. But I don't know if this is if this qualifies to the same level. I don't know. He was apparently blocking a lane on Interstate 105 while sleeping in said Rolls Royce. So
does this mean we're picking up Rondale Moore in some fantasy?
We'll see.
For the first 3 weeks.
Maybe that's a good fantasy question when we have Kendall Valenzuela on the program a little late. So
you got to look for it. You the small edges.
What are our thoughts there? I don't know why we have all of these unfortunate news potential suspension items, but the Browns rookie and former Ohio State quarterback Quinshon Judkins might have to face a suspension before he ever even sees the field. Did not report to camp today with the rest of the team's draft picks. Reportedly told by the team to focus on his legal situation after being arrested on a domestic violence charge over the weekend. For our purposes on the field, what does that mean for the Browns?
I'm not entirely sure because I guess the assumption was going to be that Judkins was going to be the guy. You still have Jerome Ford on the roster, though, who at times has been serviceable. I don't know if he's the workhorse back that you
He's had really good moments, though.
Yeah, right. And so can you just get by with a guy like Ford and the way the rest of this depth chart shakes out if Judkins is going to miss some time? It's not a very strong I say backcourt, I meant backfield. Got hoops on the mind. But it's not a very strong backfield for the most part if you're looking at it on paper. Jerome Ford, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson, Pierre Strong.
Nick Chubb's gone.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I think that this one might be a little bit more impactful because you expected Judkins to have a pretty big role for them. But overall, we're talking about a running back here. So, for a bad team, by the way.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. But that's just another potential blow to an offense that already has all of these quarterback questions. When you have 4 quarterbacks in your room, I think it's very clear you have none.
No,
and
what are you talking about? Everybody's saying Joe Flacco is going to start. No
and
problem.
on a team that is co-favorites with the New Orleans Saints to have the fewest wins in the National Football League.
Everything's fine. Joe Flacco's the very clear starter. They're going to be fine.
90 seconds before we have to hit the break. Does this one mean something to you? Lions took a preseason blow to their defense yesterday, placing defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike on the reserve PUP list, so he will miss at least the first 4 games of the season.
I mean, I think it just matters only because we saw this team deal with a ton of injuries last year, and so it's not really great, especially on defense. So it's not really great to start the year off with a blow to your defensive line and the depth there. Also, we should note that, of course, Aiden Hutchinson's coming back from injury too.
Mm-hmm.
So is your defensive line going to be a little slow, right, to get up to speed when you're talking about some of the depth getting dinged up, Hutchinson trying to work his way back from this really serious leg injury? That, I think, is probably, as we always talk about, right, the injuries that come en masse. When you have cluster injuries at a single position, that's when it starts to bother you. And I think that's why maybe this one might be a little bit more impactful.
Yeah, and so the thing that worries me about this is that as of right now, at least, it is an undisclosed injury. So what might that be? He missed all of the 2022 season dealing with a serious back issue. Last season, he played 10 games. There wasn't anything noticeable at the back end of the season, but when you already have Aleem McNeil, who's expected to miss some time at the start of the season with ACL as well, you know, kind of pairing all of that together.
Makai Wingo, I think, too, was one of their guys, too, so...
Yeah, so keep all of that in mind. And then a team that people already have like some questions about with the coordinators being gone and all of that just adds insult to literal injury in this case. Okay, we're just getting started here on Follow the Money. Still so much more to get to. I know we gave you a little glimpse into what has transpired so far at the Open Championship, but coming up next, covering the Open on SiriusXM Channel 92, Carl Paulson joins us coming up after the break.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
The 153rd Open Championship from Royal Portrush gave us a show on day 2. Event favorite Scottie Scheffler shot 7 under today to take a solo lead at 10 under for the tournament, is now minus 175. Odds-on favorite to win it all, alongside Jonathan Montalvo. Stormy Buonantony with you live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. But we are going to hop all the way over to Northern Ireland, where Carl Paulson joins us here on the Progressive Guest Lineman, covering the Open out there at Royal Portrush on SiriusXM Channel 92 at C Paulson Golf on X. First of all, how is the other side of the world treating you, and are you staying dry?
No, I'm not staying dry, and they're treating us perfectly over here. Lots of Guinness and lots of potatoes, and it's been an absolute blast so far.
You know, I got to try a Guinness. I haven't had one in like many years. I can't even remember what it tastes like, so I'll have to try that. All right, let me ask you, because I'll go all over the place when it comes to beer. I want to ask about Scottie, because we were discussing this, Carl, when we came on the air. You know, in the days leading up to this tournament, a lot of the conversation was around Scottie and his putter and the way that it had performed across the pond at times with those slower greens. Well, through 2 rounds, according to some databases, he is now leading the field in strokes gained putting. What have you seen from him on those greens out there?
You know, it's interesting. I had this conversation with somebody a couple of hours ago. Scottie is not afraid to have a really bad putting week. Last week, he was by far the best player from tee to green at the Scottish Open, and he did not even putt close enough, not even close to well enough to win that golf tournament. And then he comes over here and he's making everything. I don't really understand how he can switch, turn the switch that quick. But when he starts making putts and gets confidence, it's over. I mean, it's scary how good he is. I can't really explain the putter. It seems like it's just a kind of a confidence thing to me.
In a week, no less, Carl, when he was on the podium giving one of the most interesting and deep and thoughtful press conferences, talking about the career and how you go on to win and what that means for you as a person, as a father, as a golfer. Like, how much does just the way that he carries himself as an even-keeled person carry over to the golf course for this guy?
Well, it's super relatable, right? We all can listen to that press conference that he had and be like, wow, that's really interesting, and it's relatable. It really brings out the human side in him, which is awesome, because when he's on the golf course, he's not. He seems more like a cyborg when he's out there on the golf course. But I don't really understand how somebody can separate those two parts of his life like he can. But he certainly has. And I think that has a lot to do with his faith and his rocks and his family and all the things that he really believes in. He knows that he's going to have a good life regardless of whether or not he wins golf tournaments. It just so happens he does win golf tournaments, and he wins a lot of them.
Carl, what do we make of Brian Harman? He was one of 3 guys that were 6 under for the day. How sustainable is this as we head into the weekend for Harman?
Well, according to 2 years ago, it's very sustainable. Kind of the same weather conditions that we had a couple of years ago when he won the Open Championship we're having here this week. This style of golf really fits his game. He hits a flatter ball flight, so the ball's not going to be up in the air as long as a Scotty Scheffler. But I think we're going to need some conditions for him to win this golf tournament. I think we're going to need a little bit more wind than we've been having. Maybe a little bit more rain, maybe, make it like he reminds me of a mudder. I call him a mudder, right? A horse that loves the mud. He just loves that grittiness. He really is a bulldog, pun intended. The Georgia Bulldog is really, really good when the conditions are not ripe.
Carl Paulson, PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. So whether it be Harman or any of these other guys who just played really well today, Chris Gotterup also shot 6 under, Matt Fitzpatrick 5 under today, McIntyre, Wyndham Clark, Keegan Bradley. There are a handful of these guys that did really well today. Any of them you think that this round could catapult them into the weekend?
I like to look through 36 holes and see who's played a little bit more consistently. You've got a guy in Bryson DeChambeau who shoots 77 and then turns around and shoots 6 under par, or shoots 7 over the first day, turns around and shoots 6 under. I don't like that in the back of my head, thinking about a guy that if the conditions get tough, that he can easily shoot 4, 5, 6, 7 over par. I want to look at the guys that have been at least par or better in both rounds.
How far down this leaderboard would you be willing to go, given how the course is played through the first 2 rounds and what it maybe looks like weather-wise for the weekend?
Well, I heard you guys saying he's minus 175. I hate that line for Scotty, but it's hard for me to go much past the number 1 spot on this list. He's just such a great front runner, and in the conditions that I'm looking at now, it can change very rapidly here. And by the way, you go to every city and you say, so how's the weather here? And they say, if you don't like it, wait 5 minutes, and you're like, whatever, dude, it's always the same. Well, I found a place where it's not. I wore a short sleeve shirt for 16 holes today. And when we got done, it was 15 degrees colder and raining sideways. So I found a place that actually it does change on the flip of a coin. But the weather's supposed to be pretty good tomorrow, and not a whole lot of wind, and not a whole lot of wind on Sunday. I think that really feeds into Scotty being able to hit those launching irons. He hits it to the moon. He gets it to stop. He's always hit it hole high. And right now he's making putts. I really don't see anybody other than Scotty winning this tournament unless he's out on the golf course when we get some terrible conditions.
Yeah, and speaking to those conditions, this is a course, too, that, as we talked about earlier in the week, doesn't have a lot of those tree cover to help you out a little bit. What have you thought of Rory so far? T12 right now, 2 under today, 3 under for the tournament.
Pretty pedestrian. He's only hit 9 fairways out of 28 opportunities, which is not enough. He's going to have to drive it better on the weekend for him to contend for this championship. Now, 5 of those 9 that he hit throughout the first 2 rounds were on the back 9 today. So if he continues to drive it like he drove it on the back 9 today and gets a little bit of a heater with the putter, he certainly could contend. But I don't know how you're going to spot Scotty Scheffler 7 shots and have a chance to win.
So I know we always talk about winner, and that's everything that all that matters. But from a betting standpoint, you can still get these guys top 20, top 10. Mm-hmm. Some of these big names, Carl, outside of the top 20, like Jordan Spieth, like Bryson DeChambeau had a really big day today, maybe John Rahm. Are any of these guys you would look at to say, all right, they had something here on Friday, they can carry that over and find themselves tied to top 20, top 15, maybe top 10?
Yeah, I really think that Matt Fitzpatrick, he's not going to go away. He could have easily been 4 or 5 shots better through 36 holes. He's really been playing nicely. Played nice last week at the Scottish Open, and he's continuing to play well, which is nice because he hadn't played well in 2025 until about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So it's nice to see him playing well, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think that Chris Gotterup is a really interesting story. A guy that won in Myrtle Beach last year and then turns around and wins the Scottish Open this year. And obviously he's rolling with a lot of confidence right back up towards the top of that leaderboard. And the way that he's putting, he's always been a hell of a ball striker, but the way that he's putting, I certainly see him sticking around for a high finish as well.
Yeah, what's gotten into him the last couple weeks? Is links golf just going to be his strength now moving forward?
Well, this really didn't happen, but I'm claiming that it did happen. I was out at the John Deere Classic the week prior to them going over to the Scottish Open and followed him on PGA Tour Live on Sunday. And he takes like 20 seconds to hit his long shots, his drives and his irons. And he was taking like a minute and a half to hit his putts. I mean, like, it was epic. And we were talking and having a long discussion about how he has to speed up his process with his putting to match his long game because he's such a good ball striker. His process this week and last week have been about half as long as they were the prior week at the John Deere Classic. So I'm hoping that somebody heard us talking about it and they told him. And even if they didn't, I'm going to take credit for it.
I love it. Carl, thank you so much for the time today. We appreciate it. Now take a load off and throw a couple back for us.
Don't worry.
Enjoy. Carl Paulson, everybody. Really appreciate the time. Former PGA Tour player doing a great job with PGA Tour Live. And again, you can follow him on X as well at C Paulson Golf, SiriusXM channel 92. How do you feel about going into tomorrow?
I don't really care about that. I was just actually thinking, I don't think I've actually ever had a Guinness before.
Ever? Even
Yeah.
I've had one before.
Yeah. I think I've had a sip, but I've never finished an entire Guinness before.
My husband and I went on an Alaskan cruise last year, and I think he drank the boat out of Guinness every day we were there.
This is really heavy, right?
Yeah, it's not my type of beer personally, but I mean, if I'm in Northern Ireland, I'm for sure going to have a Guinness, so I don't blame him one bit.
Yeah, split the G. That's what I was going to say. I was looking for that term earlier, but I couldn't get to it. That is up there, like when you just drink, I don't know. It's not that much off the top. You ever heard of that term? So the glass has Guinness written across.
Right.
You're supposed to take your first drink of the draft is supposed to cut the G in half.
That's a pretty good chug then, right?
Yeah,
okay,
it's supposed to be a good amount.
San
Do they have
Diego-
Guinness here? Oh, let's go. I'll go find out after the
San
show.
Diego
Yeah.
State didn't teach me that one, unfortunately.
No.
We got to take a quick time out when we come back. Getting back into a little NFL conversation, Kendall Valenzuela, Fantasy Life, is going to join us, get you set for your draft, and maybe give us a little mindset talk for how to play some season-long props. We'll be right back.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
If you're serious about winning this football season, your edge starts now with the all-new VSiN NFL betting guide for the first time ever. We're including fantasy football insights alongside our trusted betting content. That means in-depth previews of all 32 teams, season win total analysis, best bets from our VSiN show hosts, guests, and experts, player props, betting projections, and now strategies to help you dominate your fantasy draft. Right now, lock in VSiN's football special for just $175. You'll get full VSiN Pro access through the Super Bowl. That's every betting guide, so our NFL betting guide that's out now, but our college football betting guide and beyond, daily best bets, 24/7 video coverage, exclusive analytics, and all of the tools available daily at vsin.com. Early bird pricing does end July 31st, so don't wait. Sign up today to get your NFL betting guide at vsin.com/subscribe. That's vsin.com/subscribe. And speaking of fantasy, if you're like me, you're gearing up for the football season. Your fantasy draft will be here before you know it. And to help us get the lowdown on what to expect this season, excited to welcome Kendall Valenzuela to Follow the Money on the Progressive Guest Line. Fantasy Life senior analyst, host at SiriusXM Fantasy from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. What is going on? Welcome. It's almost training camp season, and for the Chargers, it already is.
Yes. How's it going, guys? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Fantasy. Yeah, it sneaks up on you. Like, we're already July 18th, I think today is the date. And so a couple weeks from now, you got your home league drafts, you got underdog drafts already going. So it's it's fantasy football season. Glad to be here.
I know we're going to get into a handful of different skill positions and sleepers and players that you really like, but when you're wearing a neon green Seattle Seahawks hat, I got to ask you off the top, what do you think of Seattle this year?
Yeah, I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. Obviously, got the hat on. A little bit nervous of a Seattle Seahawks fan, if we're going to be totally honest. They, went out and got Sam Darnold, which could be good, could be bad. I think that Geno Smith, for a lot of the crap that he got being the quarterback there, he was able to mitigate how bad that offensive line was, and so they thankfully went out and they went ahead and got Grey Zabel for their first pick in the NFL draft this year, and I think that's going to be good. I'm just nervous about Sam Darnold under pressure. Still really hope that JSN is able to break out. But when you have Cooper Kupp and then Marquez Valdez-Scantling as your third receiver, I'm just trying to be optimistic today, and I'm doing it by wearing the hat and hopefully bringing good luck. But a little bit nervous for that team this season. But, I'm going to try to always be optimistic.
So, Kendall, there was some news last couple of days, last 12, 24 hours about some of these suspensions. We were actually just talking about one. I want to get your thoughts on the Browns' depth chart at running back. It doesn't really look great on paper. Jerome Ford's listed at the top. Quinshon Judkins obviously told to stay away from the team for now. How do you think this breaks down from a fantasy perspective? Is it as easy as just go get Ford?
Yeah, it might be as easy as go get Ford. I'm going to be totally honest. I'm staying away for now. Like, I'm looking at this team and I'm saying, okay, Jerry Jeudy could be a guy that you could go and get and say, I feel pretty good about it. If we're looking just specifically at the running backs, Quinshon Judkins, you should probably, if you're drafting right now on, doing best ball teams, you should probably just wait. It's a wait and see situation on what Quinshon Judkins is going to look like this season. Jerome Ford is a good option, but I also look back and I say to myself, okay, if they thought that Jerome Ford was going to be good this season, they wouldn't have gone out and gotten 2 rookie running backs in the draft. So Dylan Sampson is going to be the cheaper option, and that's the one that I'm going for right now. Again, I wasn't expecting him to potentially step up into a bigger role because of the 2 ahead of him, but with all the news going on, Dylan Sampson with a day 2 talent might be the guy that you can go and get. And again, if you're looking at pricing and you just want a piece of the action, he's going to be the cheapest option. So I do think that he now is going to get some improved volume in this offense. But again, if it were up to me and you were asking me, are you drafting Dylan Sampson or just staying away? I'm more than likely going to stay away from this offense.
While on the topic of suspensions, a couple potential ones coming up for wide receivers as well. Rashee Rice with the Kansas City Chiefs. We got the news on the DUI pleading, however that works out for Jordan Addison as well, but still TBD on what this might be. How might that play out for fantasy players?
Yeah, so Rashee Rice was one that kind of came up all of a sudden. I don't know if other people knew that this was coming up, but he's going to serve, he's got 30 days he has to serve in jail, and then he's got 5 years probation. The 30 days he can serve throughout that 5-year probationary period. So it's not something where we're not going to see him for 30 days. And then with the NFL, they can now go ahead and give him a suspension, which is something I haven't heard anything of when that could come down, but I have heard, between 2 to 6 games. For fantasy football managers, you're hoping it's on that lighter side of like 2 to 3 games, because 6 games is really, really, really significant for Rashee Rice. So I think when I look at this, I am going to say that Xavier Worthy, he was already kind of expensive going into drafts, but Xavier Worthy now has the potential to have a really big breakout season. And he's someone that I'm going to be targeting early and often in my fantasy football drafts. He averaged 10.7 points per game during the regular season, which was like a wide receiver 4 finish. But once he got that full-time role, oh my gosh, he just went off. Weeks 14 through the Super Bowl, he had 19 points per game, had a 25% target share, had a 21% of the air yard share. So he was really able to take on that full-time role and run with it. We were always worried about what Rashee Rice would take away from him during the upcoming season. But now that we have this news, to me, like it's Xavier Worthy to the moon. And I'm really, really excited to see what he could do potentially. And then again, we'll just have to wait and see for the suspension and what it's going to look like.
So you just released your wide receiver fantasy rankings. I think it's pretty obvious. We know the 2 names at the top, whatever order that you've ordered, Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson, you can let our audience know. But I wanted to focus on Jefferson. How do you handle the dynamic of having essentially a rookie quarterback throwing him the ball?
Yeah, I really like JJ McCarthy. Like Justin Jefferson, people are going to either put CeeDee Lamb at 2 or, Justin Jefferson at 2. And I'm not going to fault anyone if they say, hey, I like CeeDee Lamb over him. I think a lot of my other rankers at Fantasy Life have CeeDee Lamb at number 2. But Justin Jefferson, for me, it's interesting because you do get a little bit nervous about JJ McCarthy. But to me, we talked with Kevin O'Connell at the Super Bowl just a couple of months ago, and we told him he was the quarterback whisperer. Like Kevin O'Connell, for for everything that it's worth, he's been able to get fantasy production out of a lot of quarterbacks and just give them some of their best seasons. And so what we've seen with Kirk Cousins before, what we saw with Sam Darnold just last season, I think there's a lot to the Vikings conversation where we just have to say, hey, if they were comfortable letting Sam Darnold walk, we just have to understand that JJ McCarthy is probably going to be good for this team. And it might take him a little while because, like you said, we have no sample size on JJ McCarthy from last season with that unfortunate injury. But I'm putting my faith into Kevin O'Connell. And he has, like I said, he's got Justin Jefferson over there. He's got Jordan Addison. And we're just going to have to wait and see what that suspension is going to look like as well. But I really like Justin Jefferson this season. He just feels quarterback proof no matter if JJ McCarthy is going to be, really good or maybe mediocre to start. I'm not going to say that he's going to be bad because I just don't believe that. But he is just Justin Jefferson. He's going to go up and get it. He's going to get a ton of the targets as well. So even with no, small sample size on their quarterback, JJ McCarthy, I really like Justin Jefferson as my wide receiver too.
Okay. So on the show, we have, mainly it's just me because I'm a blowhard, declarations where we make statements and we're going to keep track of these. My declaration that I'd like your thoughts on: this time next year, we'll be talking about Brian Thomas Jr. as a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy.
Yes. Applause. I'm right there with you. I moved him down a little bit, but I originally had him as my wide receiver 4, and I love Brian Thomas Jr. this season. Right now, he's my wide receiver 5. I just like the Jaguars offense as a whole. I just completely agree with you on that. I think that, not only Brian Thomas Jr., even with the arrival of Travis Hunter, I just think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a quarterback that you can get later on in drafts, and he is going to give you a ton of good fantasy football production. And I know people might look back and say, ew, it's Trevor Lawrence. We've tried to see that for the last couple of seasons, but I just really think that this team has a good run out for him. Like, they went and got him weapons. Like I said, Travis Hunter's now there. You've got Brian Thomas Jr. over there. And then you have Liam Cohen as your new head coach, who just what we were able to see with Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield last season, you hope that he's able to bring that in. So I'm with you on that one. I've got Brian Thomas Jr. as inside my top 5 wide receivers. So I really like that one.
I know we're talking a lot of wide receivers, but whether it be wide receiver, running back, tight end, are there a couple names that stand out to you as potential value adds going into this fantasy football season?
Yeah. The first one has to be Jordan Mason. So Jordan Mason, we saw with the San Francisco 49ers last season, he had a really good run out. I know that people are going to look at that and say, well, it's because, Christian McCaffrey wasn't on that team for most of the season. And that's true. But Jordan Mason is now with the Minnesota Vikings. And I love Aaron Jones, but Aaron Jones is another year older. I believe he's going to be 31 once the season starts. And for me, Jordan Mason is a perfect 1-2 punch for this offense. Like, I think they're actually going to be able to, take a little bit off of Aaron Jones's shoulders because they now have Jordan Mason in that offense. I've talked to some analysts that believe that Jordan Mason's going to be the 1A in this offense. And I'm not going that far, but Jordan Mason is cheaper in drafts, and people might look at him as just the second running back in this offense. But I believe that he's going to be able to come in and really, really take on a big workload for and get some things off Aaron Jones. So I like him. And then late round quarterbacks, I've kind of said a lot of them. I love JJ McCarthy. I love Trevor Lawrence. Drake May is probably my most drafted quarterback right now. He's sitting, I think, QB 15 with his ADP over on Underdog. But I believe in him, and he's got dual threat ability. He's got the rushing projections that we love, and so he's one of my late round quarterbacks that I like as well.
Kendall, awesome stuff, and we'll be sure to be checking in with you even more ahead of the season. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Kendall Valenzuela, everybody, senior analyst over at Fantasy Life and hosts SiriusXM Fantasy from 10 to noon Eastern weekdays at KValenzuela17. Back with more after a quick timeout.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Back here on Follow the Money, Stormy Buonantony and Jonathan Von Tobel with you. If you're ready to get in on the action, First Bet has you covered. You can sign up now to access exclusive promotions and bet on hundreds of thrilling horse races each and every day, right from your phone or computer. Visit firstbet.com. That's the number one, stbet.com, and use the promo code VSiN200. That'll score you a 20% rebate on all your wagers for the first 60 days up to $200. Don't miss out. Start betting today at firstbet.com. Got UFC 318 coming up this Saturday night in New Orleans. Former UFC interim lightweight champion, 40-fight MMA veteran Dustin Poirier making the final walk of his career in his home state, taking on former UFC featherweight champ Max Holloway for the BMF title in the main event. To help us break down not only the fight of the night, but the full card, excited to welcome in UFC handicapper Reed Kuhn, who joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Can follow him on X as well, at Fightnomics. And might as well start right there with Poirier and Holloway going head-to-head off the top. Poirier has won the last two in these wins, was now going to be the trilogy final fight here. But as an underdog against Holloway here, do you think that he can have the storybook ending or not?
I lean that he should, but there's a lot of complicating factors here. The fact that this is a retirement fight is unusual. I don't know how that affects his psyche. But Poirier has always shown up. Even after a knockout, he still has the right attitude. So that's not really going into the models. Another thing that's not going into my models is the weight class change. So the bulk of performance metrics that Holloway has earned, which are exceptional, were done at featherweight. It was simply a different weight class, different talent, different size opposition. I think that does kind of cloud the models here. And when I ran this, I actually came out with a pass. But if I were to account for that difference in weight size, I see what happening this weekend is going to be very similar to what happened last time they met. And it's simply that Dustin Poirier hits a lot harder. Holloway has always been a volume striker. He's not known for his power. He's probably landed more punches than anybody in UFC history. He just hasn't put people down at the same rate. And when he gets hit by Poirier, he's going to feel it. And now Holloway is on the other side of being knocked out cold against Topuria. And that's just not something you recover from 100%. So even though mathematically the performance metrics are very similar and it's kind of a pass, I'm personally leaning against the math, and that is I'm actually going to sprinkle a little bit on Poirier for the dog.
How do you think this goes in terms of maybe the way it finishes? Does it go to decision? Because the other thing I thought was interesting, Reed, was you look at some of the comments, thrown out like war, it's going to be a banger, things like that. Like, I wonder if Poirier is going to get hypnotized into trying to go out with a flourish, and it becomes, hey, let's just stand and bang.
Yeah, you might think that. I think fighters are known to say one thing and do another. Right. I've been on the side of consulting people to do exactly that. Go tell everybody that you're going to stand and bang, and then it's a wrestling first mentality. Who knows what they're actually going to do in there? They are both very capable strikers. They actually use a very high pace, and it's very even. So just the level of activity, you should be expecting a fight of the night type performance as long as they're standing. But if it does go down, it's definitely Poirier who would be the initiator, and he's very good with submissions on the mat. So if he thinks that he's edging around ever so slightly, or that it's even on the feet for the first 2-3 minutes, you might see him take the fight to the ground just to win that round. And so to your question of does it go the distance, it might. I would take a more conservative view. And, if you're looking for a parlay or a single game parlay, I would take the over 1.5 or over 2.5. I think it does take time to develop, but you could see a late finish.
So with that in mind, anything for method of victory that stand out to you for these two as well?
Well, Poirier has multiple angles here. Holloway really is more of a decision guy, and I don't know if he can knock Poirier out at this point. The weight class change does complicate things, of course. If I were to pick one, I might go Poirier inside the distance. But again, I think a safer angle, it's a little bit chalkier, is just to assume that this takes at least a few rounds for any kind of outcome.
All right, let's go to some of the other ones you might have an opinion on. Paulo Costa right now, a decent underdog, plus 190. Roman Kopylov is about minus 230. What do you have here?
I've got a few guys that fall into the same bucket. I think in this case, we have a veteran guy, Costa, whose stock has fallen a little bit too far, given where the price is landing right now. This is not a strong lean, but I do see a little bit of value just in the price. There's probably 3 different guys on this card where I feel like I'm not predicting that they win above 50%, but I am saying that their price, their return is higher than their expected win probability. Sure. So I see a small sliver of value here on Paulo Costa. His back is against a wall. He's had more losses than wins lately. And this matchup is probably going to stay on the feet with Kopylov, and Kopylov is a hard hitter, but Costa has been against the best. He hasn't been knocked out lately against talent like Whitaker, who is an excellent striker. So really, if Kopylov doesn't land a really clean knockout, he might just get outstruck, outpointed. And so I think Costa has enough to back as a nearly 2-1 dog.
How about in the welterweight bout between Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez? Holland enters Saturday winning back-to-back fights. He wants to fight 7 times in this calendar year and is looking to ride that wave in this matchup. But the price is anywhere from 5-1, minus 625 in that range as a favorite. Are there any alternate ways to get invested in him if you think he wins?
I do think there's other angles here, and I do absolutely agree that he is the favorite here. A couple things are going on. First of all, yeah, the guy is busy, really busy, and he loves to fight. He didn't take any damage in his last fight. He finished it very quickly with a choke. He has the submission game to win this fight. Daniel Rodriguez is a great point striker. He does have a few knockdowns, but his knockdown rate per strike landed is actually below average. So he's more of a volume guy, and he has almost no ground game whatsoever. So even though Holland has never been knocked down, I don't know if he necessarily wants to turn it into a boxing match. He's going to have a huge range advantage, gives him an advantage, keeping distance, getting the fight up against the fence. And I think that's where he has a massive advantage. I think he takes the fight down and he gets a submission. If you're looking for an angle, I like a pretty good return on Holland by submission. I think you're going to get nearly plus 200. I even saw just Holland to get more than 1 takedown as a pretty juicy return. So that's a very specific prop. And obviously those two things are correlated. So yeah, I like Kevin Holland here. It was tough to just watch his price go up and up all week until today. So smaller return on a straight up play, but there are other angles.
I know there's a couple of fights you have interest in, but you sparked something when you were talking about what else is available. How much have these markets evolved, Reed, since you've been doing this, all this time, and now with all these books available, they're adding more and more in different sports. What is all available for you when you're talking about ability to wager on these fights?
Yeah, the fight game has long had a pretty loyal following. If you go back 10 years, back when the book came out, you could, first of all, it was sides and totals, and that was it. And then you got the method of finish, and that was a great one. Well, lately, you're seeing all sorts of things. I mean, just how many strikes are landed in the first round. You can pick almost any kind of outcome, even down to the type of choke. So just the availability of different outs, different angles, all of that went up. Obviously, I don't know about the limits on some of those props. They're probably pretty tight. But yeah, that's been fun to watch. Now, when you're running models, though, you can't get that specific. I think anybody taking a quantitative view is going to be more macro than that. And certainly I am. I'm just trying to pick a side. And then I read the tea leaves of, all right, well, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter? And then I'm trying to figure out what is the best path to victory.
And Reed, obviously, there's still a couple more fights that are on that main card, a full undercard as well, as you went through your modeling for this weekend. Any other clear edges that you found in your numbers?
Yeah, well, in terms of a favorite to back, I like Ryan Spann. Now, he's up at heavyweight, not normally going there, but the lightweight to heavyweight jump is probably not as much of a risk as it is in other weight classes. Arguably, light heavyweight is even more competitive. And if I rack and stack their numbers just next to each other, I see check marks all the way up and down the block for Ryan Spann. Now, he is a little loose on defense, and that's a dangerous thing, but his opponent tonight or tomorrow has no knockdown scored, and he's also been dropped 4 times. So I just see like a lot of advantages favoring the favorite here. So, whether you want to throw him in a parlay or just back him straight up, I like Ryan Spann. And in terms of a dog, Kyler Phillips, that's a really sneaky matchup. The bantamweights, they might steal the show. They're very busy guys. They're both well-rounded. They have striking and grappling. Kyler Phillips, though, at a plus money, if I were to just take these guys at coin flip prices, I would take Kyler Phillips. So if you're going to give me any plus money at all, I'm going to take that bet. Both these guys, I think, are 1 or 2 fights away from being in title contention. So it'll be interesting just to see who gets their hand raised there.
Reed, this is great. We so appreciate your insights and breakdown. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. It's a great fight card. So normally I'm cooking steaks and posting pictures of wine, but I'll be away game. So I got to outsource my cooking tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say you can multitask. But yes, on the road. Reed Kuhn, everybody. Really appreciate his time. Follow him on X as well, at Fightnomics. I think I might tail him on that Kevin Holland by submission. Plus 225, I see. I think as we get to the commercial here, I'm going to throw that in on my app so I've got some action on Saturday.
I'm fired up, man.
Although I know he said that it was a pass, like based on his numbers, but he gave the edge to Poirier. Mm-hmm. How did you feel knowing that you have a Holloway ticket?
Oh, it's okay. I mean, I just want to watch the fight. It's not like, look, I enjoy mixed martial arts very much. I'm a big Holloway guy. This is one of those where I like Holloway a ton, outside of course, his most recent fight when she was finished. I think that he's in pretty good form, and I think overall he's going to be able to do it, but it's not like some deep insight.
I did think that the breakdown of weight class was interesting. We're going to take a timeout when we come back. Diving into the Defensive Player of the Year market as VSiN's football training camp week closes out on a Friday. We'll be right back.